TYPHON. The father of all monsters. TYPHON was the last child of Gaia, fathered by Tartarus, and is considered the most powerful and deadliest of all creatures in Greek mythology. His appearance would be accompanied by a devastating storm, and his true form was thus hard to be described accurately. Some say he had a human-like upper half, and others that instead of one head he had 100 dragon heads. His bottom half consisted of gigantic viper coils which made a hissing noise. He had huge wings and fire flashed from his eyes. TYPHON was a monster that even the Olympians were afraid of. His mate was Echidna, see below, with whom he fathered many famous monsters of Greek mythology. Together, they once attacked the Olympian gods but lost. Zeus, the king of the Olympians, confronted TYPHON by throwing 100 lightning bolts on him and trapped him under Mount Etna in Sicily. Echidna, the mother of monsters. Echidna was half a winged woman with glittering eyes and half a huge, scaly serpent. She had a seductive woman's face and a reptile's body. She was immortal and used to drag her victims to earth-shattered pits where she liked to devour them alive. She was living in a cave, deep down beneath the earth. In Greek mythology, Echidna gave birth to many famous monsters that we encounter in Greek myths. As mentioned above, her mate was the monster TYPHON. After their defeat by the Olympians and the banishment of TYPHON, Echidna and her offspring lived on to challenge future heroes. Echidna, like other female monsters that had the upper body of a beautiful woman and the lower body of any sort of dragon, was part of the Dracaeni, female dragon monsters. Other well-known Dracaeni were Ceto and Scylla. The Gorgons. The Gorgons were 3 deadly sisters whose hair was made of living, venomous snakes, and they could turn anyone into stone just by looking into their eyes. The famous sisters were Steno, Eerily, and Medusa. Medusa is definitely the most famous and notorious among her kind. According to some accounts, she was not always a terrifying monster but a beautiful priestess at the temple of Athena. The god of the seas, Poseidon, raped her, and Athena punished her, since she couldn't punish Poseidon, by turning her into that ugly creature. The Greek hero Perseus killed Medusa and used her head as a weapon to turn his enemies into stone. He later gifted it to Athena, who placed the head of Medusa on her shield. Sirens. The sirens were poultry with a female head. They were living in the seas. Their power lay in their upper body appearance. They were beautiful, young women and had a charming voice when they sang. They used their singing to lure sailors who were passing by their island and slaughter them. The great hero Odysseus, Ulysses, clever as he was, sealed his sailors' ears with wax and bound himself to the mast of his ship, to enjoy himself the beautiful song of the sirens, without getting in the temptation of following the seductive sirens. Scylla. According to Greek mythology, Scylla was the daughter of Phorcys and Ketos, once a beautiful nymph that the god Poseidon longed for. The jealous Amphitrite, Poseidon's partner, turned her into a monster, poisoning her bathing water. She had a body of fish, a female upper torso, and dog heads protruding from her neck. She haunted the rocks of a narrow strait opposite the whirlpool of another terrible monster, CHARYBDIS, see below. In Odyssey, Odysseus, Ulysses' ship passes through the strait, after losing 6 of his men who were eaten alive by the monster. CHARYBDIS. CHARYBDIS is another terrifying female monster in Greek mythology. She is thought to be a daughter of Poseidon and Gaia. She lived opposite Scylla, on the Asian shore of the Bosporus, a narrow, natural strait in the continental boundary between Europe and Asia. Scylla inhabited the European shore. CHARYBDIS looked like a huge whirlpool, and at its bottom, her monstrous mouth with huge, sharp teeth were waiting to devour any ship and sailors on it. Like Scylla, CHARYBDIS is also involved in the myths of Odysseus and the Argonauts, who passed through these straits with some loss. Impusa. Impusa was a demonic female monster and belonged to the villainous cult circle of the goddess of the underworld, Hecate. She was single-legged, she wore a bronze sandal. Hecate wore bronze sandals as well, and had donkey caps. During the night, she would leave the underworld and ascend on the world of the living. Impusa could take all forms and appeared to women and children to cause terror. She could transform herself into a bitch, a cow, or a beautiful girl. She seduced travelers, drank their blood and ate their flesh. The only way for travelers to defend themselves was to slander her. Harpies. The Harpies were anthropomorphic monsters in Greek mythology, with a bird's body and a woman's head. They nailed the souls of the people and handed over the lawbreakers to the Erinyes, Furies. the three goddesses of vengeance and retribution who punished men for crimes against the natural order. When a person suddenly disappeared from the earth, it was said that he had been carried off by the Harpies to the underworld, the kingdom of Hades and the dead. They were agents of punishment who abducted people and tortured them on their way to the underworld. They were vicious, cruel and violent. Lamia. Lamia was a beautiful queen who ruled Libya. She fell into the disadvantage of Hera because of her relationship with Zeus. The god of thunder loved her because she was beautiful and had children with her who were killed by Hera. Because of her sadness and madness, Lamia transformed herself into a child-devouring monster. Since then, she snatches the children of other mothers out of envy. She could take her eyes out and put them back in at will. Sphinx. The Sphinx has a lion's body, bird's wings and a female head. She is a treacherous and merciless monster who kills and eats those who cannot answer her riddle. This deadly version of a Sphinx appears in the myth and drama of Oedipus. This Sphinx was stopping passers-by out of the Greek city of Thebes and asked them to answer her riddle, otherwise she would eat them. The riddle was, which creature has one voice and yet becomes four-footed and two-footed and three-footed? In the Greek tragic play by Sophocles, the mythical king Oedipus was the only one who answered the riddle and managed to finally kill the monster. The answer he gave was, man, who crawls on all fours as a baby, then walks on 2 feet as an adult, and then uses a walking stick in old age. Giants. The giants were beings enormous in size. According to Greek mythology, they were human-like but huge in stature and irresistible in strength. Their bodies were scaly and ended up in a lizard tail. They had thick hair and a long beard. Their hairy hands held long and shiny javelins. Although they were of divine origin, they were mortal. Following other accounts, the giants were immortals as long as they walked on the ground where they were born. They are considered to have superhuman powers, enormous size and long life, while on the contrary, they lack ethics and imagination. A famous giant was Argus, who served as a guard of Hera. Chimera. Chimera was a 3-headed beast. She had a lion's body and head, a tail that ended up in a snake's head, and in the middle of her back came a goat's neck and head. Daughter of TYPHON and ECHIDNA, she could breathe fire from her mouth, according to Homer and Hesiod. Bellerophon, the great hero in Greek mythology, was the one to kill this monster, with the help of the flying horse Pegasus. Lernaean Hydra. The Lernaean Hydra was another child of TYPHON and ECHIDNA, a horrible sea monster with serpentine features and many, many, snake heads. Indeed, when someone cut off one head, 2 others sprouted in their place. She lived in Lerna, Argolida, and spent her time torturing the world and guarding a gate to the underworld until Hercules, was sent to kill her and save the region from her. To solve the problem with her heads, he would burn the beheaded neck before the 2 new heads sprout. If you liked this video and want to see more, please support me with like and subscribe.